The year is 1397. In the heart of Florence, the streets are alive with the clatter of iron hooves and the glow of flickering lanterns. The city smells of ink and leather, spices and sweat. Merchants shout prices across the piazza, goldsmiths hammer molten metal into coins, and apprentices hurry past carrying ledgers larger than their torsos. Somewhere in the maze of narrow, cobbled alleys, a man in a crimson robe walks with purpose. His name is Giovanni di Bicci di Medici. In his hands he clutches more than a simple ledger. He carries a vision that will change how wealth moves, how power is built, and how empires are ruled. In the centuries to come, his family's name will be whispered in royal courts, carved into cathedrals, and written into the very foundations of modern finance. But before Giovanni could rewrite history, he had to solve a problem no one had yet mastered. To understand his world, we need to go back to a time before banks, before credit cards, before the word finance even existed. Back then, wealth wasn't a number on a screen or a line in a book. Wealth had weight. Gold and silver traveled in heavy chests strapped to wagons, dragged by oxen across treacherous roads. Merchants risked everything with every journey. Mountains swarmed with bandits, rivers swallowed shipments whole, and every dusty mile was a gamble between fortune and ruin. A single ambush could erase a lifetime of work. And so, merchants didn't rely only on weapons or guards. They relied on something far more precious: trust. In the 1200s, Florence was home to the Bardi and Perozzi families, merchant dynasties that mastered this trust. They didn't just trade goods. They traded confidence. They lent vast sums to kings and popes, financed wars and crusades, and built a network of offices stretching from London to Constantinople. For a time, it seemed they had discovered the ultimate secret: how to turn gold into influence. But power has its price. In 1345, King Edward III of England, deep in debt from his wars with France, refused to repay his loans. Overnight, both the Bardi and the Peruzzi were ruined. Their collapse triggered a financial crisis that rippled across Florence and beyond. Merchants panicked. Credit vanished. Fortunes turned to dust. For most, it was a warning. For Giovanni di Bicci, then a young man watching from the sidelines, it was a lesson in risk, in trust, and in opportunity. Giovanni was not a soldier or a nobleman. He was patient, analytical, and intensely curious. He saw what others missed. The problem wasn't gold itself. It was the way people trusted gold. And he believed that trust could be reshaped, controlled, and turned into something far more powerful than metal. So in 1397, Giovanni founded Banco dei Medici, the Medici Bank. It began humbly, a small office on a Florentine street where art, politics, and ambition collided every day. But Giovanni's idea was revolutionary. He wanted to build a network that could move money without moving gold, a system built not on wagons and guards, but on ink, parchment, and promises. Here's how it worked: a merchant could deposit gold in Florence and receive a bill of exchange, a written promise of payment. That same merchant could then travel to London, Venice, or Geneva and withdraw the same value from a Medici branch there. No robbers, no caravans, no fear, just trust, guaranteed by the Medici name. It was a simple idea, but it transformed the very nature of trade. For the first time in history, wealth could travel faster than a horse. And with every transaction, the Medici reputation grew stronger. But Giovanni's brilliance didn't stop there. The real power of the Medici Bank wasn't just in moving money. It was in how it was recorded. Before Giovanni, medieval bookkeeping was messy, inconsistent, and vulnerable to fraud. But the Medici perfected something revolutionary: double entry accounting. Every transaction was recorded twice, once as a debit, once as a credit. It created a balance, a mirror that reflected the truth of every deal. Fraud became harder. Mistakes were easier to catch. And most importantly, trust moved from men's words to the certainty of numbers. With their ledgers growing and their influence spreading, the Medici began lending to nobles, cities, and, most importantly, the church itself. The Pope needed armies for crusades, gold for cathedrals, and wealth to crown kings. The Medici provided it. Their clerks sat beside bishops, their contracts lay on Vatican desks, and their influence reached into the very heart of Christianity. Slowly, quietly, this family of merchants became the financial heartbeat of Christendom. Giovanni's son, Cosimo de' Medici, inherited far more than a fortune. He inherited a weapon, one more powerful than swords or armies. Cosimo didn't rule Florence with soldiers. He ruled it with credit and debt. He financed wars, influenced elections, and decided the fate of republics from behind closed doors. The people called him Cosimo the Elder, and his reach stretched across Europe. Kings who once commanded armies now depended on the Medici's pen. By the mid-1400s, the Medici Bank had become the most powerful financial institution on earth, and yet, the idea of banking wasn't entirely new. Centuries earlier, the Knights Templar had built a similar network. Pilgrims could deposit money in Paris and withdraw it in Jerusalem, using coded documents and secret ledgers. But their power frightened kings. In 1312, the French crown crushed the Templars, their system vanishing into myth. The difference was that the Templars built their power on faith. The Medici built theirs on influence. Faith could be betrayed, influence could survive. As their wealth grew, so did their ambitions. The Medici financed cathedrals that touched the heavens, libraries filled with ancient wisdom, and universities that shaped the minds of generations. They sponsored painters, sculptors, and architects. Botticelli, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. Money had built their power. Art would make it eternal. Florence became the beating heart of the Renaissance, and at the center of it all was the Medici name. But power is never without enemies. In 1478, during High Mass at Florence Cathedral, assassins from the rival Pazzi family struck. Blades flashed in the sacred light. Giuliano de' Medici was killed. Lorenzo, known as the Magnificent, barely escaped with his life. Blood stained the altar. The message was clear: even the most powerful bank in the world was not invincible. Cracks began to spread. The London and Bruges branches failed. Political alliances turned against them. Rivals circled. By 1494, the once mighty Medici Bank collapsed under the weight of its own ambition. But the family had already outgrown it. They had turned wealth into power, and power into dynasty. Within decades, Medici blood flowed in royal veins. Two of Giovanni's descendants became Popes Leo X and Clement the Elder. The family that once counted coins in backrooms now crowned emperors and shaped the destiny of nations. Their power had transcended banking. And although their bank fell, their ideas did not. Bills of exchange, double entry ledgers, branch networks. These inventions became the foundation of global finance. The Medici had proven a truth more enduring than gold. Real wealth isn't the treasure you hold in your hands, but the trust people place in your name. Today, every time you swipe a card, send money overseas, or check a balance on a screen, you're walking a path laid down over 6 centuries ago. It all began in that small Florentine office, where a man in a crimson robe decided that trust was worth more than treasure, and that a family's name could outlast any crown. Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici never led an army, never conquered a kingdom, never wore a crown. But he built something far greater. He built a system, one that turned trade into trust, trust into power, and power into immortality. And in doing so, he changed the world forever.